Well, I don't want to take too much of your time this morning. I just want to say hello and welcome. Um, we have kind of a different Learning with Leverage webinar. I don't know if you have attended any of these before, but I'll do kind of a brief introduction of myself. And I would love for you to tell me, feel free to drop it in the chat, what credit union you are with, and where you are at. I am in sunshiny Georgia today. Um, and I believe that most of ours are going to be in the Southeast, but uh, welcome. We are going to be focusing today on some soft skills and what training at your credit union could look like. So something that we've kind of gotten into before is, when we're talking with a lot of our credit union partners amongst the league, we've kind of seen these different scenarios where we're looking for all these integrations and we're looking for the newest and most popular tech. We're doing a lot of integrations with AI, and we're doing a lot of these integrations that are, really great technology. And sometimes we're missing a little piece of what kind of made the credit unions different. So we're just going to kind of delve into some of the soft skills, maybe looking at ourselves and saying, well, hey, I'm really great at communicating, but there might be this one little piece that I'm missing. So hello, my name is Misty Waldrop. I'm with Growth by Design. We are the marketing arm of the League of Southeastern Credit Unions. And kind of what happened was I was at a conference. I don't know if anybody has been to any of our recent conferences over the last year. And I was approached by a credit union and they said, hey, we have done so many things within the credit union. We've updated our core. We've spent copious amounts of money on all these different facets, but we've kind of noticed this disconnect between our frontline staff and our back office staff. And information is being shared, and what we're missing a piece. And so that's kind of how the conversation got started and how we kind of came up with this soft skills training program, because we just realized, we're living in a very different world than we even lived in, 5 years ago. Our post-COVID world, I don't know how everyone was affected with that, but I I know for me personally, when I was going back into the realm of networking and trying to speak with my coworkers, I felt like I kind of had a little bit of a speed bump after being, isolated for a little bit of time. And we have a incredible, um, diverse workforce and our membership base, that everybody is much more tech savvy than we were just a few years ago. But it feels like a little bit of our communication, or maybe some of our creativity, some of those things we haven't really had our finger on the pulse on for a little while. And so what are our soft skills? What are the soft skills that we can enhance and bring to the forefront? What can we look internally for and say, hey, I am really, really great at communication. I'm really great at teamwork. Um, but overall, I'm like, well, I'm not really doing as well as I could with time management, or maybe some problem solving, or how do I feel comfortable approaching my leadership, or maybe approaching someone that's a little bit, sounds bad, lower on the totem pole than I am. And we ensure that communication is consistent. So soft skills generically are just, I would never have enough screens to talk about all of the different soft skills um, that are there. These are the most common ones that we kind of think of. And as you're sitting on this casual webinar with me today, my goal is this isn't a TED Talk, right? Like, we're not going to unveil some kind of new thing that is, we haven't maybe discussed before. But maybe if we could just look at things a little bit differently, because the way that we are communicating with each other is continuing to change and pivot and adapt. So how do we thrive beyond just the technology that we are given and really be able to enhance our member experience? So we're gonna back up a little bit, right? Never before in time have we ever seen such a diverse workforce. I don't know what the makeup of your membership is completely. I'm not sure exactly what your workforce looks like, but for the first time ever, we have a wide variety of generations that are all working together. You know, we're going to start, you might have some members on your team, or you might uh, be some of our traditionalists, some of our silent generation. If you are that person, the way that you respect authority, the way you communicate is going to be very different than how our team members in Gen Z are going to communicate. So if we look at these and the structure of our coworkers and our workforce, um, we're going to start. We have traditionalists that are still working. They can't retire. Maybe they don't want to retire, but they're naturally hardworking. You know, they're going to put their nose in the dirt. They're going to make do or do without completely. That's kind of on if you're looking at the spectrum of our workforce or our membership base. Um, you know, our traditionalists aren't going to make up the entire gamut of who we're trying to serve or who we're working with. Uh, Baby boomers, you know, naturally are baby boomers, and these are general sweeping observations, but you know, I kind of identify with my little bracket here. I won't tell you what that one is, but you know, baby boomers were raised by traditionalists, so they naturally expect some um, you know, difference to their opinions. They're workaholics. That's what my parents are. My parents are baby boomers, and you know, I was kind of on that Gen X millennial side where I was a latchkey kid. I came home and kind of experienced those different things. So, you know, when we start to talk about the gamut of who we're trying to market to and how we're trying to have those communications, you know, with our Gen X, they're naturally comfortable with authority. They're going to work as hard as needed, but we've kind of, for the first time in history, see these people that they're like, hey, I need some work-life balance. I'm not going to be like my parents and just work for 35 years in the same industry. I'm not just going to be uh, loyal forever. I need some work-life balance. So kudos to my Gen X here that were willing to step up and step out and kind of push the grain a little bit. So I am technically a millennial raised by boomers, and so a lot of my influence is specifically from my boomers. And I know I'm talking a lot about myself here, and so I apologize for that. But I think that when you look at the different generations and how you're influenced, if you have parents that are maybe a little bit older, or you have Gen X parents, um, that's going to influence how you communicate naturally when you're naturally speaking with your membership. That's going to how you receive your information and how you receive your communication. Gen Z, I'm proud to say, is right now my most favorite generation. I love to see our Gen Z workforce. Um, they are incredible fast decision makers and often are comfortable asking the why. Well, I understand we do it this way, but I want to know why. And so I just would implore you when you're having those conversations with your coworkers and your membership base, it may feel a little uncomfortable if someone is automatically saying, "Well, why?" You know, but when you're having those conversations, it's okay to ask why in these different scenarios. Feel free in the chat. Have you encountered some of the generational communication styles, maybe that they make you uncomfortable? Or maybe you're like, you know what, I'm in the right bracket, but um, when I'm speaking with my members, their expectation of the service they receive, those types of things, feel free to drop in the chat and we can definitely talk about kind of what this landscape looks like. So here we are, this is our current workforce demographic. So we still have our silent traditionalist. Um, oh, here we go. Anonymous. My chat is disabled. How do I enable? Well, see, it looks like I've opened it for everyone. Feel free we'll see if this works. Maybe that will work for us. In a little. Of course, I'm going to send my email as well. So if you have any questions, we can absolutely address those as well. See if that works, maybe. Okay. So let's go back to like our workforce demographics. This isn't just our workforce, this is also our members. Well, depending on your credit union, of course, but we have our silent traditionalists. They are across all industries. They are 50 million currently in the workforce. We start to see that uptick. We see our baby boomers. Gen X, they've come a little bit lower. Well, hey, my friend here, if you have any questions, I can see it here, so feel free to put it here. I apologize about the chat not behaving. I will definitely inquire about that. But then we kind of see an overarching scope, and then we come back to our millennials here. This is where we are, and then we kind of are just now starting to get our first big wave of our Gen Z joining our membership base and being our coworkers. So how we pivot and adapt our communication styles is going to be different, right? Like our silent traditionalists, the silent generation, they may really appreciate that written communication. They're going to appreciate that face-to-face, whereas with our Gen Z, with those members, the way that we need to communicate with them might need to be focused on, well, we need to be digital first, right? We need to ensure that our social media channels, maybe our emails, maybe our push notifications are coming through consistently. So every single generational profile, their communication is going to be different, that the information that they want to receive is going to take a different format. And this is where we can kind of encounter some natural conflicts. I don't know if you've noticed when you're even sending emails amongst your peers, you might be seeing that, well, I'm sending an email, but I know when I'm sending it to a member or someone within my own demographic, I know I need to just kind of get straight to the point, and I don't necessarily have to give the entire background. But that doesn't mean that I need to naturally pivot my natural tone and my cadence when I speak. So just being aware, being situationally aware of your communication style is just a general soft skill, and just say, hey, when I'm speaking to a member, they don't seem to understand what I'm saying. And how do we navigate some of those more challenging conversations? And just being aware generically of that your different communication styles might have to continue to pivot. They might have to adapt. So when you meet those points of friction, your membership truly understand, the information, your products or your services, spoken often at a very basic level. There's been studies that have come out, and so my background's in marketing. So when I'm tailoring my marketing messages for the membership, I just have to be aware that the average consumer, the way they receive information is at a 7th to 10th grade level, right? Let's think about that. If we're communicating with essentially middle schoolers, are we giving them the correct and appropriate responses? Are we casually interjecting jargon that makes sense when we're speaking with our coworkers? Because an average member is not going to know what an ACH stands for, just as an example. Well, it was an ACH, it was an EFT draft. Our average member is not going to understand that. And so it sounds weird, but you have to ensure that when you're speaking with your membership, let your staff know that it can almost feel condescending when we start to use our casual jargon that makes sense for our team, but maybe does not make sense for the member. We have to also balance our communication. So the way that we provide the information about a new product or service or an existing policy is we're going to have to deliver that exact same messaging consistently, but in several different formats, because who we're trying to tailor that conversation for is going to be different. A lot of people, good and bad information, they are receiving that via social media. TikTok is more widely searched than Google. Isn't that incredible? Email still incredibly powerful within our credit union space. We still see fantastic engagement with email, but it feels archaic to say, well, I'm having my member messaging come through email. Still incredibly impactful. If your credit union is set up, text notifications or push notifications are also a fantastic way to reach your membership base. Written, the most expensive form of content, right? Direct mailings. A lot of our membership still appreciates receiving some of that direct mail. Newsletters and emails as well, some of those personalized emails that we send to our membership base. This is where we thrive. The next two, verbal and hands-on. For our credit unions, phone and face-to-face. It is probably the most consistent amongst our credit unions. We are widely loved across industries for being that point of contact. I mean, we're dealing with people's money here, right? We're dealing with our own money. And so that verbal face-to-face, ensuring that we are giving the correct cues for empathy, that we are actively listening, ensuring that our staff and coworkers are not only knowledgeable in our products and services, but they feel confident that they can explain them to the member. So if you are in a leadership role, I would love to know, how do you share information amongst your team? Are you confident sharing that information up with the frontline staff? They are the people that are consistently having those conversations with the membership. They are getting their hands in the game. They have their finger on the pulse at all times. They are hearing the rumors and the threats of fraud amongst credit unions and banks alike. You know, and when you're going to pivot this even more, how are we hands-on? How are we sharing that information, you know, not only up the chain, but down and out, ensuring that all the staff is knowledgeable of frequent updates that are coming, how this will impact the membership, and also giving them the tools and the practice to say, hey, if you have to deliver really challenging information to this member, loan denials, do you have a senior leader on your team that is really great at not approving loans, where they can say, hey, you don't qualify for this loan at this moment, but let me give you the tools so when you come back in 6 months, your credit's going to be in a better situation, everything's going to look better. When you have those team members that are confident and can have those challenging conversations with the staff, allow them to have a seat at the table and say, hey, I can think of some examples of the credit unions that I've been involved with. They say, hey, Brenda is really great at turning down people and they don't get upset. So we're going to please, Brenda, how do you deliver this information? And can I tailor it in my own speech so that if I have to deliver, you know, another loan denial, how can we be confident delivering that? So this was kind of interesting when we were coming up with this soft skills program, and you know, how can we help the credit union, give them the information on what they need? We did an industry survey, and 78% reported instances where they felt maybe some of their junior staff maybe just hadn't been able to hone in on some of those soft skills abilities. General things, phone etiquette. You're like, well, this is really natural for me. How do you not know how to talk to someone on the phone? But there's a cadence kind of in our corporate world, and it doesn't feel like corporate, but we're a business. Do you train on phone etiquette? I've never been trained on phone etiquette. But, I'm glad I don't have to talk to my 16-year-old self when I had to answer phones in my first jobs. Um, how do we handle difficult situations gracefully when you have an upset member that no one wants to deal with, that you have to keep getting someone from the back to come to the front to deal with this person? Is there a way that maybe some of the frontline staff or someone in member services or a loan officer, um, maybe they just need to know how that particular member needs to receive information? Maybe it's really direct. And do they have the confidence and the ability to handle those difficult conversations? And as generically as the power of a smile, it's it's awful. It sounds awful to say the power of a smile, but credit unions, we are kind of the Disney World and the Chick-fil-A of service, right? And so we've created a situation where that's where we've set our standards over the last, really 20 years of, you know, we are the difference. We are the way that people are supposed to be treated. And it's uncomfortable, right? It's hard being kind of in that customer service uh, scope right now, right? Like the world is feeling it, the prices of things are absolutely astronomical and things are uncomfortable. But if you are one of those people within your team and a personality hire, if you're able to be that person that can create smile amongst your staff, or you know who that person is and maybe they need to be encouraged, just looking for those small situations where they say, "Hey, you do a great job just making people happy." Um, I really want you to kind of hone in on that and don't feel discouraged if you're having to have these challenging conversations. And this is a quote I love to reference. And you can take it a lot of different ways, right? We can take it from the frontline staff's personality. We can take it from the people that answer the phones. We can take it from our lending staff. It's yeah, your customers may never fall in love with you, but if you give them bad service, your competitors will. And I think of it often. Have you ever, I'm sure, surely not, but if any of you have like a traditional bank account, are you receiving the same service that you're giving? Or have you experienced some of this where you're like, "I'm just trying to run my errands, and this one person that I'm encountering is just really having a challenging day," right? All we need is for one hiccup and one moment where I'm like, "I'm just in a horrible mood, and I have so much going on at home and financially, and I'm thinking of all these things that are kind of filling the noise." Um, could I accidentally create a moment where my member will leave? And just being reflective of that, um, no one wants to see you fail harder than your competitor down the road, right? So just something to think about. And of course, I was hoping my chat would work, and now my chat's not working. But I would love your insight on this. Are you experiencing that as well, where you're like, wow, these are my competitors and they're doing a better job than us? And how do we maybe navigate that where we feel empowered to lift up our team and say, hey, it's rough out there, but we have this, we have each other's back. Um, can we create a bridge to kind of fill the communication gaps between our different departments? And what does that look like? Right? Are we going to create a monthly memo just to make, an internal memo just to make everyone aware of what's kind of going on within our space? So if I have any younger friends here, any of our participants here, I want to kind of just think of a different approach, right? There used to be this incredible thing called a mall where you would go in. It was before they incredible deliveries, right? And there's a mall kiosk. And you know how it is, right? Like you approach and you kind of try to not get into that kind of that sales trap where you're going to be approached by someone with in that mall kiosk energy, right? Where they kind of get you there and then they kind of corner you and they really act like they care about what's going on in your life. They're really great at making small talk. Um, but we don't want to create these mall kiosks where where we're making awkward small talk filler conversations, but we also don't want to create a situation where in our service environment where we're serving our members, they feel like they're just kind of getting like turned and burned, where we're just trying to go quickly. Um, so how do we create that that positive service environment? Well, one way we can do it is let's think about what our members are seeing. Have you ever walked through the front door, right? We go back through the staff entrance, but have you ever walked through your front door in a while just to see what your member sees? Think of all the senses. Are they overhearing gossip amongst the teller line? Are they overhearing private conversations? Think about the things they're hearing. Think about the things they're witnessing. Just take it like if it's my first time walking into my branch, what are they seeing? What are they smelling? What are they overhearing? And just being aware of that and just say, "Hey, I walked into our main office for the first time through the front door, just like a regular member would. And I noticed that maybe we need to install some white noise. I could hear everything that was going on." Just those little moments of what does your member experience? You have to put yourself in their shoes. Um, Also bring your own flair. Personalize your interactions within your own speak, the way that you communicate with your membership base. I can tell you, I have had coworkers that if I said something the way that they said it, I it wouldn't have gone well at all. Whereas the same way, I feel pretty comfortable making small talk with members, but I've often trained people, and to my own fault in my history of training, I was trying to train them in the way that I spoke, which wasn't natural to them, right? And thankfully, I don't do that anymore. But when I was getting into kind of my younger leadership opportunities, I wasn't kind of situationally aware. So I think it's important to also say like, "Hey, I'm doing it my way, but maybe I need to kind of pivot and adapt," because that's how we create ourselves as better professionals. So how are we anticipating our members' expectations? How are we listening? Right? Are we just active listening? We know how to do that, or are we just trying to get the situation resolved as quickly as possible? And where are we receiving the information that we're hearing? Right? Good or bad? Where are our non-members receiving that information? Are they just Googling us? Right? Yelp is gone. Are they just Googling us? Are they just looking for industry standards? Are they looking up on TikTok or YouTube or social media? Um, I think it's really important to never discredit our frontline staff. And I say this to CEOs, the most important people in your entire credit union are not your C-suite. They have never been your C-suite. The most important people in your entire credit union is your frontline staff, the people answering the phones, and the people that are on that direct face. Um, because they're the ones that are hearing it, right? Like they're the ones kind of in this entrenched in the battle of member service, as dire as I'm trying to make that sound. It's just they have their fingers on the pulse, they're hearing the rumors, they're feeling the energy. And so when your senior leadership needs information, they need to go to the frontline staff often for that information. Are your teammates comfortable displaying empathy in a professional way? Right? So what does that look like? How do we display empathy? It's listening, it's validating, but then it's also saying, "I may not have a solution for you," and allowing the space to be quiet. But also, empathy can be proactive, where it says, "I hear you. I understand what you're going through. You can't seem to get ahead." On our last soft skills training, we had sent out a pre-survey where we had asked some really close questions, and we wanted people to be vulnerable and share what they were going through. And what one particular teammate was able to do is not only were they displaying empathy in what they were doing, they were proactive. So they heard the member saying, "Oh, it feels like I can't get ahead of my bills. And, this car payment is falling along those lines of, I'm getting behind. I'm always getting a late fee. I'm not going past 30 days, but I'm just getting a late fee." And they were proactive and they were not able to give them an answer that day, but they ended up and impacted them. And they went back to some of their loan officers and they said, "Hey, I don't work in loans. This particular member is incurring a lot of fees," right? This would never happen in our banking world. Of course, only in our credit union world. They said, this member's incurring a lot of fees. They're uncomfortable with the payment date. I think, is it possible for them to change that? Can they just change their date? How will it impact them? And we know it will, right? It'll affect their amortization schedule. It might affect the ultimate payoff date. It could impact, um, or it maybe you don't have the options for a deferment. But kudos to that employee for feeling comfortable and going and having that conversation. And what that led into, just to kind of give you some background, it led into an additional training for the staff to say, "Hey, if they need to change their loan payment at this particular credit union, the way it worked, yes, we can change that payment date, but also they're going to have to do this through the loan department directly, but we will allow you to set up a deferment. And when you do that deferment, this is how you do it." And they were able to show them within the core, this is how you do it, this is your partial payment, that kind of thing. But just that level of confidence and giving that to your staff, just so they're aware, is incredibly impactful because you've already taken the initiative to go and step out and said, "I could have just let this member go and just let them complain, but I was proactive. She sought knowledge, she gained experience, and now she will never have to go back just for those little deferments." So I would encourage you when you're having these conversations amongst your team, just say, "Hey, is there maybe like some knowledge that we're accidentally gatekeeping? Maybe we've onboarded new staff. Maybe they just need to be aware of some of our existing policies and procedures, and how do I give them the power to make those decisions so they don't feel obligated to always come to me?" Um, yes, where are non-members, where are they getting our information? Good information and bad information. I kind of put these in opposing order, but we want to give the autonomy for our frontline staff, our people that answer the phone so they can discern the communication length. There may be some times when we're communicating where we say, "Hey, this is a longer conversation. I might need to go and get someone to come in and explain this to you." Um, if the line is building up, if the line is out the door, how do we explain that to a member? Because if you said it just like that, they would be like, "Wow, okay, I'm dismissed. I'm taking too much of your time." And will they internalize that as a negative experience? So the most important thing is soft skills are a variety of things, right? But if we're focusing just on the communication aspect, how do we share our information amongst our peers? We have to ensure at all times that we're sharing that information up, out, and down amongst staff. Just to give you a little bit of topics, these are our most common topics. And maybe when you're looking at this, if you are in charge or you have, communication with your HR, whomever's in charge of your training or your staff training, these are some of the most common topics that we are seeing kind of across our credit unions generically. So, general soft skills, we just focused a little bit on communication here. What are consultative sales? Um, if you have not heard this term before, or if it's not something that you have to do, consultative sales is essentially not a used car salesman, right? It never worked, hardly. Well, it was working for a period of time, but the old adage of this is how we cross sell, this is how we get our membership to not having their roots a mile wide at a million different um, locations. This is how we get their roots a mile deep. Consultative sales are providing your membership with information for products that they can actually utilize and will benefit them. And how do we have those conversations? Um, how we have member-centric service excellence at all times. Strategic communication. We are all looking for ways to pivot and adapt our communication styles. I hope that that is our one takeaway today is say, hey, maybe I'm not communicating as effectively as I probably should. Um, Creativity, it's hard to be creative, right? It's hard, it's a learned skill, but also just getting back to our roots within our credit union movement. How do you find your credit union passion? Does your team have that? Do you know why the credit union movement is so important and what all of us, what all these participants are on today, why you are doing incredible work? Do you have that knowledge and what does that look like? Do you know the credit union history and why it's so important that credit unions started in coffee cans of farmers coming together to share resources and they were co-ops and is your staff aware of that and how important their role when they come in on their regular 8 to 5 that they're having this impact? And then finally, internal and external communication. So internal is just going to be amongst our cross collaboration. And then external communication is are we a unified front when we're speaking to our membership base? So if you're looking for some topics, we will be putting these up online. But if you're looking for some topics and you need any information, feel free to reach out to our team. We can help provide information and resources to you. Um, I don't know how your credit union handles training. I have seen it where it's monthly or quarterly or yearly. But we would be happy to share this information with you. Or if you just say, hey, you know what, Misty, I like what you're saying. We need to help our front line, back line. We need our entire credit union to find their credit union passion, to know what they do matters. Can you just do it? Yes. Yes, we can also handle that directly for you and for your team. So if you have to handle some staff training, this is typically a format that we will do. We do anonymous surveys, which might work well for your team. There are tons of free options. SurveyMonkey is probably one of our most common ones. They don't have a lot of features when you do the free version, but we do have surveys we can send out. We also will typically go over an introduction of who the speaker is, our agenda, go through our presentation. Really impactful. We've done mini games, breakout sessions, polls. We try to keep it as interactive as possible to ensure that all the staff is engaged. Um, we also like to provide case studies. And then, of course, when you're doing this within your own credit union, ensure that you have your follow-up where your staff has access to the resources, whether it be a book, a blog, a TED Talk, whatever that is, and the recording sent to the staff. I don't know if you watch a lot of recordings of past webinars. I keep them playing in the background, but I do that not with my own webinars, but with other speakers that I really appreciate. But we often encourage for any of these webinars to be recorded. And then if needed, we send the survey results to the CEO or HR. And you probably know how this is. Not everything needs to be shared, but maybe if everyone deserves to have a spot at the table and to be heard and for their opinion to be considered. So if someone really does have some great insight and they say, hey, I'm noticing this trend where all of the members are coming in and they say at one particular branch, they don't have to fill out deposit slips, but at the main office, we require deposit slips. Can we just come up with some simple communication of where we are all on the same page and we just ensure because when I go and get a Big Mac at McDonald's, I want it to taste consistently the same as all my other Big Macs at other McDonald's, right? It's just ensuring that we have that consistent communication. But, depending on kind of what our town hall will bring to the conversation, sometimes, and you can probably navigate that, our survey results don't necessarily have to go all the way up the chain. So overall, um, I am not trying to take your entire day here, but our soft skills training, if you need some help, Growth by Design and the league, we are here to help you. If you are noticing a small deficiency or maybe just a little gap that you need to fill, we have created a soft skills program, and our goal is to create incredible credit union teams. And we want your teams to be member focused, incredibly confident, highly skilled, and motivated. And our goal is to help you kind of achieve those goals. So, of course, if you have any questions, I will be sending some follow-up work here for you, so you will have access to things. If you are interested, uh, the next Learning with Leverage series is with another one of the Leverage partners. It's with CU Next Gen, and they are going to be focusing on the future of financial security and building AI resilient defenses for your credit union. Of course, thank you so much for attending today. I'm going to be here for a little bit longer. Feel free to throw anything into the Q&A. That looks like our form of communication for the moment. So feel free to throw anything in there, um, any questions that you have, but I will be here for a moment. Okay, it looks like we do have a question here. Thank you so much, Satya. It's wonderful seeing you. How do I approach giving and receiving constructive feedback? Thank you so much for that. I actually kind of had to go to training for this. So, what I've done to kind of receive constructive feedback, I'm always trying to find the best solution that makes sense for me and my team. When I'm looking for constructive feedback, I don't necessarily just go up the chain. I try to go out to the people that I respect the most in the league, where I see, um, I could probably name them, but I see these really impactful emerging leaders that maybe aren't in leadership roles, but I just appreciate how they approach our credit union clients or they approach members. And so I go directly to them and I just say, hey, um, would you mind attending my webinar? Or would you mind watching me speak? And would you be comfortable giving me feedback? Because that's what I'm looking for. So I don't necessarily go up for feedback consistently. I try to go out amongst my peers as well. Um, mm. Oh, okay. Let's see here. What soft skill do you believe is most crucial for success in the workplace? That's a hard one. I think that everybody could potentially say a different soft skill. Um, for me, I feel pretty confidently that communication or lack of communication is something that we all kind of struggle with. So for me, I probably talked a lot about communication because it's one that um, I feel more confident in. But I feel like communication just lends itself to empowering our coworkers, our teammates, and ensuring that they have the knowledge to communicate effectively. So I would probably say communication. I'm very comfortable to also say that one that I'm trying to get better at, I'm not going to say I'm bad at it, but one that I'm trying to get better at is for sure time management. I need to time block a little bit better. So that's one I'm working on. I would love to know yours. Okay, wonderful. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. It looks like our chat has slowed. Of course, I'll be sending some follow-up information. If you have any questions, absolutely feel free to reach out, and we'll be sending a follow-up survey. So they'll be asking about the content. Please stay tuned for our next Learning with Leverage series. And as always, it's great to see you. I love to see you here, Dewana. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Michelle. Y'all have a wonderful day.